Question 1. In California, what legal actions can a buyer pursue if a property is sold with an undisclosed easement? A. Terminate the contract. B. Sue for damages. C. Request a price reduction. D. None, as easements are public record. Answer B. Sue for damages. Explanation. In California, if a property is sold with an undisclosed easement, the buyer can potentially sue for damages due to non-disclosure, as it can affect the value and use of the property. Question 2. What does the transferable development right, TDAR, entail in California urban real estate? A. Transferring property to a new owner. B. Selling development rights from one property to another. C. Exchanging commercial rights for residential rights. D. Transferring the title of a property with conditions. Answer B. Selling development rights from one property to another. Explanation. A transferable development right in California allows property owners to sell development rights from their property to another, enabling higher density or different uses on the receiving site. Question 3. For a property in probate in California, what must a potential buyer consider? A. The property cannot be sold until probate is complete. B. A court may need to approve the sale. C. Probate properties are sold as is. D. Probate sales are cash-only transactions. Answer B. A court may need to approve the sale. Explanation. When a property in California is in probate, a potential buyer must consider that the sale may require court approval, which can affect the timeline and terms of the sale. Question 4. What are the implications of a deed in lieu of foreclosure in California? A. The borrower must leave the property immediately. B. The lender accepts the property instead of pursuing foreclosure. C. The borrower's debt is increased. D. The borrower retains ownership, but with new terms. Answer B. The lender accepts the property instead of pursuing foreclosure. Explanation. In a deed in lieu of foreclosure, the borrower voluntarily transfers the property deed to the lender to avoid foreclosure, settling their debt. Question 5. If a California real estate agent fails to disclose known earthquake faults, what could happen? A. Mandatory license suspension. B. Potential legal action for non-disclosure. C. Automatic contract termination. D. No consequences, as faults are public record. Answer B. Potential legal action for non-disclosure. Explanation. If a California real estate agent fails to disclose known earthquake faults affecting a property, they could face legal action for non-disclosure, as this information materially affects the property's value and safety. Question 6. What does converting a property from leasehold to fee simple mean in California? A. The property can only be leased, not owned. B. The leaseholder gains full ownership rights. C. The property becomes a rental unit. D. The property is split into multiple leaseholds. Answer B. The leaseholder gains full ownership rights. Explanation. Converting a property from leasehold to fee simple in California means that the leaseholder gains full ownership rights, converting a leasehold interest into an outright ownership interest. Question 7. For legally converting a part of a property into a short-term rental in California, what steps must be taken? A. Obtain a business license only. B. Ensure compliance with local zoning and regulations. C. No steps required, as it's a private property matter. D. Only inform the homeowners association. Answer B. Ensure compliance with local zoning and regulations. Explanation. To legally convert a portion of a property into a short-term rental in California, the homeowner must ensure compliance with local zoning, regulations, and possibly obtain permits or a business license. Question 8. What are the legal requirements for a heritage home in California? A. Approval from the local historical society for any changes. B. No restrictions on alterations. C. Only interior modifications are allowed. D. Compliance with specific preservation standards. Answer: D. Compliance with specific preservation standards. Explanation: for a heritage home in California, any renovations or alterations must comply with specific preservation standards to maintain its historical integrity. Question 9. How does the Mills Act affect property taxes for historic properties in California? A. Significantly reduces property taxes. B. Increases property taxes due to historical value. C. Has no impact on property taxes. D. Only affects properties over 100 years old. Answer: A. Significantly reduces property taxes. Explanation: the Mills Act provides property tax relief to owners of historic properties in California in exchange for their commitment to preserving the property. Question 10. When can a property in California be subject to a forced sale? A. Only if the owner agrees to the sale. B. In case of unpaid property taxes or debts. C. When a property is abandoned. D. Forced sales are illegal in California. Answer: B. In case of unpaid property taxes or debts. Explanation: a property in California can be subject to a forced sale, such as through foreclosure or tax lien sales, in cases of unpaid property taxes or debts secured by the property. Question 11. What is the impact of Proposition 65 on real estate disclosures for commercial properties in California? A. Mandatory disclosure of all known hazards. B. No impact on real estate disclosures. C. Disclosure of lead-based paint only. D. Disclosure of only asbestos-related hazards. Answer: A. Mandatory disclosure of all known hazards. Explanation: Proposition 65 requires the disclosure of known hazards, including chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer or reproductive toxicity in commercial properties. Question 12. How are air rights transactions typically handled in densely populated areas of California? A. No special considerations are needed. B. Through negotiations between neighboring property owners. C. Only through government intervention. D. By default, air rights are untransferable. Answer: B. Through negotiations between neighboring property owners. Explanation: in densely populated areas of California, air rights transactions are typically handled through negotiations between neighboring property owners, allowing for the development of airspace above buildings. Question 13. What is involved in removing a property from an HOA in California? A. It's impossible to remove a property from an HOA. B. A majority vote from the HOA members. C. Only the property owner's decision is required. D. Approval from the local government. Answer: B. A majority vote from the HOA members. Explanation: removing a property from a homeowners association in California typically requires a majority vote from the HOA members and possibly amending the governing documents, which can be complex. Question 14. How does a cloud on title affect a real estate sale in California? A. The sale can proceed without issues. B. It may delay or impede the sale. C. The seller is penalized financially. D. It invalidates the property's title. Answer: B. It may delay or impede the sale. Explanation: a cloud on title in California can delay or impede a real estate sale, as it indicates a potential claim or lien against the property that needs to be resolved. Question 15. What are the requirements for a dual agent in a California real estate transaction? A. No special requirements. Standard practices apply. B. Written consent from both buyer and seller. C. Only the seller's consent is needed. D. Approval from the California Bureau of Real Estate. Answer: B. Written consent from both buyer and seller. Explanation: in California, a dual agent representing both buyer and seller in a real estate transaction must obtain written consent from both parties, disclosing the potential conflicts of interest. Question 16. What are the legal implications of selling a condominium conversion property in California? A. No different from selling a standard condominium. B. Specific disclosures related to the conversion process. C. Higher taxes due to the conversion. D. Approval from all existing tenants is required. Answer: B. Specific disclosures related to the conversion process. Explanation: selling a condominium conversion property in California requires specific disclosures related to the conversion process, including any changes to the property and its impact on tenants. Question 17. What obligations does a California real estate agent have in disclosing a property's wildfire vulnerability? A. No obligation, as this information is public. B. Mandatory disclosure of wildfire risk and history. C. Disclosure is only required for properties in high-risk areas. D. Disclosure is at the agent's discretion. Answer: B. Mandatory disclosure of wildfire risk and history. Explanation: California real estate agents have an obligation to disclose a property's vulnerability to wildfires, including risk assessments and any history of wildfire damage. Question 18. How does a life estate impact property sale in California? A. The life tenant must consent to the sale. B. The property cannot be sold until the life estate ends. C. Sale proceeds are split between life tenant and remainderman. D. The life estate is automatically terminated upon sale. Answer: A. The life tenant must consent to the sale. Explanation: in a life estate situation in California, the life tenant must consent to the sale of the property, as they have the right to use and occupy the property for their lifetime. Question 19. What are the challenges of discovering an unpermitted addition during a property sale in California? A. The addition must be demolished immediately. B. Potential legal and financial ramifications. C. No challenges, as long as the buyer accepts it. D. The seller receives a bonus for the addition. Answer: B. Potential legal and financial ramifications. Explanation: discovering an unpermitted addition during a property sale in California can lead to legal and financial ramifications, including the need for permits, potential fines, and re-inspection. Question 20. What does Coastal Commission approval entail for real estate development in California? A. No impact on real estate development. B. Mandatory for all coastal properties. C. Approval required for developments near the coastline. D. Only needed for commercial developments. Answer: C. Approval required for developments near the coastline. Explanation: Coastal Commission approval is often required for real estate developments near the California coastline, ensuring compliance with environmental and public access regulations. Question 21. In California, what legal obligations does a property owner have upon discovering an ancient Native American artifact on their land? A. Immediate notification to the local historical society. B. No legal obligations, as it is on private property. C. Reporting the discovery to the State Archaeological Department. D. Securing the artifact for personal collection. Answer: C. Reporting the discovery to the State Archaeological Department. Explanation: in California, a property owner is legally obligated to report the discovery of an ancient Native American artifact to the State Archaeological Department or appropriate authorities for proper handling and preservation. Question 22. What are the legal consequences in California for failing to disclose severe environmental contamination on a property? A. A fine but no impact on the sale. B. Potential legal action for non-disclosure. C. Mandatory cleanup by the seller. D. The sale is automatically nullified. Answer: B. Potential legal action for non-disclosure. Explanation: in California, failing to disclose severe environmental contamination on a property can lead to legal action against the seller for non-disclosure, as it significantly affects the property's value and safety. Question 23. How does California's Proposition 13 affect real estate transactions concerning property tax reassessment? A. Increases taxes for all new buyers. B. Limits tax reassessment to 1% of the sale price. C. Completely exempts new buyers from reassessment. D. Allows transfer of tax base under certain conditions. Answer: D. Allows transfer of tax base under certain conditions. Explanation: California's Proposition 13 limits property tax increases and allows for the transfer of the original tax base to a new property under certain conditions, such as for seniors or disaster victims. Question 24. What steps must a landlord follow to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent in California? A. Immediate eviction without notice. B. Providing a written notice and court process. C. Only a verbal warning is required. D. Selling the property to force eviction. Answer: B. Providing a written notice and court process. Explanation: in California, to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent, a landlord must provide a written notice, usually a 3-day notice to pay or quit, and may need to go through a court process if the tenant does not comply. Question 25. What is the impact of a conservation easement on a California property owner's development rights? A. No impact on development rights. B. Restricts certain types of development. C. Increases the property's market value. D. Requires government approval for any development. Answer: B. Restricts certain types of development. Explanation: a conservation easement typically restricts certain types of development on a property in California to preserve natural, scenic, or historical aspects of the land. Question 26. How does a cloud on title affect the purchase process of a property in California? A. Speeds up the purchase process. B. May delay or impede the sale. C. Requires a higher down payment. D. No effect, as it's a common issue. Answer: B. May delay or impede the sale. Explanation: a cloud on title in California can delay or impede the sale of a property, as it indicates unresolved claims or disputes that need to be cleared before the sale can proceed smoothly. Question 27. What does being in a Mello-Roos district imply for a property buyer in California? A. Lower property taxes. B. Additional taxes for specific local improvements. C. Exemption from state taxes. D. Automatic enrollment in the Homeowners Association. Answer: B. Additional taxes for specific local improvements. Explanation: being in a Mello-Roos district in California means the property buyer will be subject to additional taxes used to finance specific local improvements, such as schools, roads, or parks. Question 28. What are the legal considerations for a real estate professional dealing with a property that was a crime scene in California? A. Mandatory disclosure of the crime. B. No need to disclose if it was more than 3 years ago. C. Disclosure only if asked by the buyer. D. Disclosure required only for violent crimes. Answer: A. Mandatory disclosure of the crime. Explanation: in California, a real estate professional must disclose if a property was a crime scene, particularly if the crime could materially affect the property's value or desirability. Question 29. Why is lead-based paint disclosure important in California real estate transactions? A. It's a unique feature that increases property value. B. Mandatory for all properties built before 1978. C. Only required for commercial properties. D. Lead-based paint is considered a bonus. Answer B. Mandatory for all properties built before 1978. Explanation. In California, lead-based paint disclosure is important and legally required for properties built before 1978 due to the health hazards associated with lead paint. Question 30. What are the key considerations when buying a property through a foreclosure auction in California? A. Properties are always free of liens. B. Potential for below-market prices but higher risks. C. Auctions guarantee clear titles. D. No inspections are allowed. Answer B. Potential for below-market prices but higher risks. Explanation. When buying a property through a foreclosure auction in California, key considerations include the potential for below-market prices, but also higher risks, such as unresolved liens or the inability to inspect the property beforehand. Question 31. What are the legal implications for a California property owner discovering an ancient archaeological artifact on their land? A. Mandatory donation to a museum. B. No legal implications, as it's found on private property. C. Reporting the discovery to state authorities. D. The property owner can sell the artifact. Answer C. Reporting the discovery to state authorities. Explanation. In California, if a property owner discovers an ancient archaeological artifact, they are legally required to report the discovery to state authorities for proper handling and preservation. Question 32. How does the discovery of a property being in a habitat for an endangered species impact its use and value in California? A. No impact, as property rights supersede. B. May restrict development and lower value. C. Increases value due to ecological significance. D. Automatically converts the property into a public park. Answer B. May restrict development and lower value. Explanation. Discovering that a property in California is in a habitat for an endangered species may restrict development and potentially lower its value due to environmental protection laws. Question 33. What impact does a conservation easement have on a California property? A. Increases the property's development potential. B. Limits certain types of development or usage. C. No impact, as it's a voluntary agreement. D. Automatically reduces property taxes. Answer B. Limits certain types of development or usage. Explanation. A conservation easement in California typically limits certain types of development or usage on a property to preserve its natural or historic value. Question 34. What challenges arise in air rights transactions in densely populated areas of California? A. No challenges, as air rights are rarely used. B. Complex negotiations and legal considerations. C. Automatic government intervention. D. Air rights are not recognized in California. Answer B. Complex negotiations and legal considerations. Explanation. In densely populated areas of California, air rights transactions often involve complex negotiations and legal considerations due to overlapping interests and development rights. Question 35. What are the legal consequences for a California real estate agent failing to disclose a property's history of severe environmental contamination? A. A small fine. B. No consequences, as it's considered public knowledge. C. Legal action for non-disclosure and possible license revocation. D. Mandatory cleanup by the agent. Answer C. Legal action for non-disclosure and possible license revocation. Explanation. In California, A real estate agent failing to disclose a property's history of severe environmental contamination may face legal action for non-disclosure and possible revocation of their real estate license. Question 36. What challenges arise from converting a historic residential property into a commercial venue in California? A. No challenges as long as the exterior remains unchanged. B. Compliance with historic preservation and zoning laws. C. Automatic increase in property value. D. Mandatory government ownership. Answer. B. Compliance with historic preservation and zoning laws. Explanation. Converting a historic residential property into a commercial venue in California involves challenges related to compliance with historic preservation guidelines and zoning laws. Question 37. What does contesting a property tax assessment entail in California, and on what basis can it be done? A. Automatic reduction in taxes. B. Challenging the assessed value based on comparable properties. C. No basis for contesting, as assessments are final. D. Requires a unanimous vote from the neighborhood. Answer. B. Challenging the assessed value based on comparable properties. Explanation. Contesting a property tax assessment in California typically involves challenging the assessed value of the property, often based on comparisons with similar properties in the area. Question 38. What legal implications arise from a nuisance claim against a California property owner's commercial operation? A. No legal implications, as it's a private matter. B. Potential for legal action and required mitigation. C. Automatic shutdown of the operation. D. Transfer of ownership to the complainant. Answer. B. Potential for legal action and required mitigation. Explanation. A nuisance claim against a property owner's commercial operation in California can lead to legal action and may require the owner to mitigate the nuisance, such as reducing noise or odors. Question 39. What is involved in obtaining a conditional use permit for property development in California? A. A standard permit available to all property owners. B. Special permission for uses not typically allowed by zoning. C. Only required for government-owned properties. D. Automatic approval with a higher fee. Answer. B. Special permission for uses not typically allowed by zoning. Explanation. Obtaining a conditional use permit in California involves getting special permission for property uses not typically allowed by the current zoning, often subject to specific conditions. Question 40. How does California's Green Building Standards Code affect new construction projects? A. No effect, as it's voluntary. B. Mandates environmentally sustainable building practices. C. Only applies to government buildings. D. Increases construction costs without benefits. Answer. B. Mandates environmentally sustainable building practices. Explanation. California's Green Building Standards Code affects new construction projects by mandating environmentally sustainable building practices to promote energy efficiency and environmental responsibility. Question 41. What must Andy do to rebuild his arcade in the same location after a rezoning to non-commercial in California? A. Nothing, as previous businesses are grandfathered in. B. Apply for a variance to allow commercial use. C. Automatically allowed to rebuild without permission. D. Convert the arcade into a residential property. Answer. B. Apply for a variance to allow commercial use. Explanation. After a rezoning to non-commercial, Andy would need to apply for a variance from the city, allowing an exception to the zoning rules to rebuild his arcade in the same location. Question 42. What legal requirements must be met for development in a California coastal zone? A. No special requirements, standard zoning applies. B. Obtaining approval from the California Coastal Commission. C. Only local government approval is required. D. Automatic exemption for all residential developments. Answer B. Obtaining approval from the California Coastal Commission. Explanation. For development in a California coastal zone, legal requirements include obtaining approval from the California Coastal Commission, which oversees and regulates land use in coastal areas. Question 43. What are the disclosure requirements in California for a real estate agent selling a property where a death occurred within the last 3 years? A. Disclosure is optional. B. Only disclose if the buyer asks. C. Mandatory disclosure of the death. D. Disclosure required only for violent deaths. Answer C. Mandatory disclosure of the death. Explanation. In California, a real estate agent is required to disclose if a death occurred on the property within the last 3 years, regardless of the cause of death. Question 44. How does California's Proposition 19 impact property tax assessments for inherited real estate? A. Automatic increase in taxes for all inheritances. B. Limits tax reassessment in certain inheritance scenarios. C. Complete exemption from property taxes. D. Requires reassessment at current market value for all inheritances. Answer B. Limits tax reassessment in certain inheritance scenarios. Explanation. California's Proposition 19 limits property tax reassessment in certain inheritance scenarios, such as when a primary residence is transferred to children or grandchildren. Question 45. What legal issues arise when selling a property located in a California floodplain? A. No legal issues as floodplains are common. B. Mandatory flood insurance requirement. C. Disclosure of flood risk and potential insurance requirements. D. Automatic reduction in property value. Answer C. Disclosure of flood risk and potential insurance requirements. Explanation. Selling a property in a California floodplain involves legal issues like the disclosure of flood risk to potential buyers and discussing potential insurance requirements. Question 46. What are the challenges and legal considerations of historic property preservation in California? A. No challenges, as historic properties are exempt from laws. B. Compliance with preservation guidelines and potential restrictions on alterations. C. Mandatory conversion into public museums. D. Historic properties cannot be sold. Answer B. Compliance with preservation guidelines and potential restrictions on alterations. Explanation. In California, historic property preservation involves challenges like compliance with preservation guidelines and potential restrictions on alterations or renovations to maintain historical integrity. Question 47. How do air rights impact urban real estate development in California? A. No impact, as air rights are not recognized. B. Allow for the development of structures above existing buildings. C. Require federal aviation approval. D. Limited to government use only. Answer B. Allow for the development of structures above existing buildings. Explanation. Air rights in urban real estate development in California allow property owners to develop or sell the space above their existing buildings, often used in densely populated areas. Question 48. What challenges and legal requirements does a developer face when converting a historic building into a boutique hotel in California? A. No challenges, as commercial conversion is straightforward. B. Navigating historic preservation laws and obtaining relevant permits. C. Automatic approval from the City Council. D. Historic buildings cannot be used for commercial purposes. Answer B. Navigating historic preservation laws and obtaining relevant permits. Explanation. Converting a historic building into a boutique hotel in California involves challenges like navigating historic preservation laws and obtaining the necessary permits while maintaining the building's historic character. Question 49. What are the legal implications for a California property owner with limited groundwater use during a severe drought? A. The owner must sell the property. B. No legal implications, as water use is a personal choice. C. Compliance with state-mandated water usage limits. D. Mandatory installation of water recycling systems. Answer: C. Compliance with state-mandated water usage limits. Explanation: during a severe drought in California, a property owner with limited groundwater use faces legal implications like compliance with state-mandated water usage limits to conserve resources. Question 50. What are the disclosure requirements for a California real estate agent selling a property that was the site of a major crime? A. Disclosure required only for violent crimes. B. No disclosure required if the crime occurred over a year ago. C. Mandatory disclosure of the crime to potential buyers. D. Disclosure only if the crime affects the property's value. Answer: C. Mandatory disclosure of the crime to potential buyers. Explanation: in California, a real estate agent selling a property that was the site of a major crime is required to disclose this information to potential buyers, regardless of the type of crime or when it occurred.